For the next stop in Cranes Etc's global travels, we go to the USA. And that's because this limited edition model by WSI is in the colours of All Crane, which started in Cleveland, Ohio. The crane is the Tadano ATF 400G-6, and it comes in Tadano style packaging. Out of the box, the trays are marked top and bottom, and there's a manual, and we can practice our sword work as we use a knife to cut the tape. The parts are all nicely wrapped, and included is the standard manual for this model, and overall it's one of the better manuals with a parts list and many photos. With mobile cranes, we just start by getting them ready for the road, and the first thing we need to do is take rope off the drum and reeve up the hook. And here we've used the medium-sized hook that comes with the model. 2 sets of handrails are included, one for working and one for transport. So we will fit the transport set and also an exhaust box. With the crane rigged and a suitable truck, we can set up a nice display. The underside of this model is very detailed. There's a ladder at the front, and all of the suspension and transmission components are fully modelled. The big all-terrain tyres have also got a nice tread pattern. At the front, the cab has got an oversized load sign in the window, and the all-crane graphics are very sharp. The model also has a unique license plate. The hook is a nice metal part which is attached to the loop at the front of the cab. The detail level is very high with the graphics and embossing within the casting. There are textured steps leading up into the cab, and the wheels have different driven and non-driven hubs. There's also branding on the tyre sidewalls. Behind the cab there are excellent textured surfaces and etched grills, and the deck also has more detailing in terms of grab handles and ladders. But one of the standout points of this model is the quality of the graphics. And here on the boom they are applied over an irregular surface, but they are perfectly applied and look great. And that includes the phone number on the boom rams also. The high standard continues to the rest of the crane, including more textured steps. And all of the detailing on the model gives the crane a very realistic appearance. And that's further enhanced by small warning graphics. At the back, the mud flaps have Tadano written on them, and there are nice soft skirts above the wheels. In addition to the license plate at the back, there's also a nice toolbox, and that also has a typical oversized load sign. On the other side of the crane there are more nice graphics and grills, and another standout item is the large spooling drum. The quality of the graphics detailing is also on the outriggers, where tiny graphics replicate the real crane. The pistons have smooth metal faces and there are nice pads, and the metal spreader plates also have usable lifting points. Here we see the power system fitted, and it's nearly an all-metal part, with the only plastic being on the ram jacket. The pendants which connect to the power system are made of metal, and you connect them with tiny brass nuts and bolts, and the same is used to connect the power system to the boom head. Also included is this heavy lift hook. And if you're wondering about the strange reeving pattern, it's because trying to reeve up the centre of this hook is very challenging, and sometimes life is just too short. At the other end of the scale, a single line metal hook is also included. We begin with an upside down view of the world, and there is sprung suspension on the axles. It's not soft and it's actually quite stiff. The axles also steer, and the front 3 are linked together, and the same is true of the rear 3. The linked steering stops individual axles floating about, but it's not as flexible as individually steered axles. Driving along, this model performs well, and it doesn't take much downward pressure to have all of the axles grounded. Let's now try setting the steering, and the angle that you can achieve is not huge, but it's good enough to produce a good looking pose, and as you can see the model does turn smoothly. To set the crane up we start in the usual way, and that is to pull out the outriggers, and the beams are 2-stage. The range of travel on the pistons is good, and you can add the big spreader plates underneath. If you want, there's no problem setting the crane high enough to be wheels free. On site we can raise the handrails to a working position, and we do that by swapping them out. And if we release the hook from the travelling position, we can raise the boom. And it goes up very smoothly. This model has got a metal main boom ram, and you lock it at the angle you want by tightening up a screw using a key. And as usual, this is a nicely engineered system. The first piece of counterweight on this model is a large element, including the tray and the winch, but the rest of the blocks are individual pieces. To fit the counterweight on, we need some help from a handling crane, and once it's correctly in position, you lock it with a couple of steel pins. Once that's all correctly mounted, we can then load it up with the individual blocks, and they provide a significant amount of extra counterweight. To telescope out the boom, you just pull it out in the normal way, and another plus point of this model is the accurate profile of the boom sections, and the sections have very thin walls. As usual, you can lock the extension of each section, and on this model each section has 3 locking points. To operate the winch, you remove the exhaust box, and that allows you then to access the winch axle using the supplied key. And it's good that there's a positive brake on the winch drum. Another feature of the model is that you can add on the power system, and we've seen how to do this in detail in reviews of previous versions of this model. To operate the power system winch and tighten it all up, you use the key. WSI has made a really good job of this model of the Tadano ATF 400G-6. And this one looks particularly good in the limited edition all crane colour scheme. It's nice to see a crane in a US crane hire company colour scheme, and this particular model is excellent.